So with Helena Lacy, talking about work for Ceramic Panic collection. Blue and white porcelain is one of the most traveled, most copied, most misattributed image traditions in history. It's already a story about distortion and retelling. Why start there?
Exactly for that reason. It already is a kind of, it has such a history to it. It's from so many different places. In my work, I'm very fascinated about how stories are retold and remembered and how information gets transferred and playing with the idea of, I'm intrigued by memory and storytelling. For me, I've always been drawn to print and like patterns that form naturally in nature. That's kind of where my works and sort of sculpture and ceramics sort of started off being inspired by. And so I look a lot at trying to replicate patterns in nature. So even the piece that I'm showing with you is called Clouds Over Mountains, and it's sort of referencing the pattern that occurs when clouds kind of roll over mountainscapes and that kind of natural moving pattern that exists. When I was studying at the RCA, I developed my own technique of printing onto glaze, which is this unique technique I haven't seen knowingly anywhere else. And I was using a lot of traditional printing techniques. And so I thought, well, I'm trying to replicate patterns and prints in nature. My work's a lot about objects. I found objects and telling their stories. So then I was like, well, these images, these prints already carry so many stories. So that's kind of overlapping again on something that am intrigued in my own work.
You describe water reflections as living, unstable prints. The ceramic fixes that instability permanently, but what gets lost in that translation? And is that loss part of the point?
Yes, definitely. For me, the bit that I don't want to do something that's just a straight copy of something. I mean, I'm intrigued by the movement and the distortion of an image. So, like looking at reflections in water. Okay, when the water's still and the reflection is like a mirror of the image. That's nice, but that's not what intrigues me. It's when it gets suddenly distorted and it's moving and it's creating all these new patterns, and it's like, how can you capture that moment? And that's what I was trying to do with my ceramic, my printed glaze. So it's that it starts as the original, the reflection, the print, whatever the image, and then it distorts in the kiln, and that's out of your control, and that's the thing that I'm really drawn to. So actually, what's most important to me in that is the kind of distortion and the kind of being lost through the process.
It does something you didn't plan,
Yeah,
but do you ever fire a piece and feel the kiln got it wrong?
yeah. Often it's ceramics. It teaches you a lot of patience. Often, and it's so much trial and error with ceramic, but I've definitely taken that as and embraced that as part of my process. Drawn to the contrast between structure, unpredictability, and the unpredictability is the kiln, like that is ceramics as a whole. That's kind of, you can try and you can try your best, but every time is slightly different. It's me making it, and then you're giving it over to the kiln, and then there is a collaborator in the process.
Yeah, you're in a relationship within that process, and yeah, you're rolling the dice effectively. When you look
Yeah.
at your own finished pieces, do you think about who will find them and what story they'll carry eventually?
I always hope that my work will end up somewhere, ended up in a museum. That would be a life goal achieved. I want it to continue and tell its own story. It's a never ending cycle, really.
Preserve and obscure, these are opposite impulses held in the same object. Which one is doing more work in this series?
Obscure, definitely. Drawn to the image distortion, and the bits the parts of my work that excite me the most are when it's really, the image has been really pulled and distorted, and there's a whole new image print that I didn't expect, or I couldn't replicate. I like that kind of playing with the contrast in my work. So structure, unpredictability. So the structure being the form that I make, and the unpredictability being the result that comes out of the kiln. And then, like, flow and form, it's the same, similar. It's that kind of contrast. So yeah.